Good evening. Welcome to the show. This is the day. My name is Medrin Nyambura. There's a gentleman who asked me on radio a couple of minutes ago whether it's called in Kileleshwa. What? You have no idea. It's a lovely Tuesday, and on Tuesday we get to find tips that help us live a better life. And this actually came from one of us. You say that you'd like to understand purpose. So I thought, how about we bring one of the people who've been very open about his journey in finding purpose. His name is Mwenesi Musalia. Karibu sana. Nice to have you here. And your portfolio is quite a very intimidating one, I must say. So I'll allow you to just introduce yourself and what you do.
Sure.
Yes.
My name is Mwenesi. I am an image consultant and communications specialist. I work for two organizations, one which I founded, it's called House of Major. We're a strategy and communications firm, so we do a lot of public relations and stakeholder management, business development and outsourced anything to do in the business and commercial side of things, as well as information. And the other organization is the Etiquette and Protocol Institute of East Africa. And for that, we train and mentor and consult on soft skills development, human resource development, and most recently, I also started a small mentoring channel online called Get Yours with Mwenesi. Yes, which just tries to encourage people to become better versions of themselves.
Why Get Yours? What are we getting?
Get yours, because it's very subjective. There's a way, there'll always be a way to the end. The end is the same for all of us, but what you choose to do with how you get to the end is subjective to you. So yours, it's not get mine, it's not Mwenesi's tips on life. It is just how can you make the most of your journey in life. So yes, I work for two organizations, both of which we started some few years ago. One is called House of Major. It's a strategy and communications firm. We do public relations, communications, strategy, and outsourced business development. And the other organization is the Etiquette and Protocol Institute of East Africa. It's a collection of trainers and mentors who teach on mostly soft skills and on image and how to present the best side of you. We work with human resource professionals, organizations, corporate organizations, public sector. And most recently, I started a small channel to put some of the stuff out there that we teach for free. It's called Get Yours with Mwenesi, to try and encourage people to become better versions of themselves.
And I was asking you earlier, why Get Yours? Why not say get what's for you, get mine? Why say Get Yours?
Get Yours, I think it's punchy, and it really speaks to how your whatever it is that is supposed to be yours is very subjective, not selfish but subjective, and central to you. So we all have the same amount of time, we all have the same 24 hours, we all have the same air that we breathe, but how we choose to use what comes our way is very different. So it is to try and encourage people that whatever is out there, you can use it in a way that feeds your purpose, that feeds your own objective, not someone else's. Because sometimes I think we struggle by comparing ourselves to other people, to other situations, and the fact is we're all different. So why not take advantage of our uniqueness and grow in our uniqueness, and then get what's ours at an individual level.
Perfect. There's something you've touched on, which is what you're talking about today, purpose. What is purpose?
Purpose, and I think we were just having this discussion off air a little while ago. I think to me it speaks to truth, meaning, anything that is meaningful, impactful, because the one person that you cannot lie to is yourself. And if you know the reason why, the goal, the end goal as to why you exist, why you're alive, why you're on this earth, then it becomes something that you can work towards. Not being purposeful means that you're not living anything, you're not living a meaningful life, you're not living a life that is true to yourself. And the unfortunate reality is that many people go through life without really having an objective which they can identify with and say, this actually is me, this is who I am and why I was put on this earth.
Okay, perfect. So how do I find it, which is the question most people ask, how do I find my purpose?
A number of ways. I can only speak from my own subjective experiences. For me, I think it has to do with two things: intrinsically, what you feel, and there are some very big intangibles there. Okay. Faith is one example of something that is very intangible. You can't touch it you can't experience it with your five senses. But if you are able to sit down and think deeply, some people, and especially you look at both modern and historical religion and religious practices.
Yes.
It all stems from a point of meditation, sitting quietly, blocking out the noise and paying attention to only yourself, listening to your own voice, whether you find that through prayer, whether you find that through whatever it is. So looking intrinsically at yourself, asking yourself certain very true questions, because many of us don't get the opportunity to do that. We're always chasing deadlines and this and paying bills, and it's the rat race, and it's noise and it's noise and it's noise. So if you can block off that noise and start to ask yourself certain real questions, not in comparison to anybody else, keeping up with the Joneses or anything like that. Shut it all out and have a conversation with yourself. If God can be involved, even better. But have a conversation with self and ask yourself, truly, looking at who I am, my abilities, my skills, my qualifications, my environment, where I was born, who I was born to, my circumstances, everything. What truly am I supposed to accomplish in this life?
Okay.
And then match that with the natural desire that all of us have, because each human being, I believe, has an inbuilt desire for something.
That's
there
true.
Could be a bunch of things, but you will always have that natural tendency to want something. And the difference between what you want and what you need is what separates those who purposely pursue their goals, as opposed to those who are saying, I'm just doing this because I need to do it. Do you want to do it? Do you want to be in that job, in that relationship, in that situation? So if you can quiet the noise and make sure that you focus on what you have and who you are, match that with what you want, and then now the second point is to now look out and study your environment and say, based on that, looking at what I have, can I accomplish it? Do I have, within my environment, are the tools that I need to get to what I want there? Education is just a tool. It's not a goal. It's not the primary driver of achievement. But education is a tool. Your network is a tool. How you communicate is a tool. Your talents, whether you can fix things or your brain is just good at calculating things. If you can cook, if you can dance, if you can, whatever it is that you can do that comes naturally. If you're naturally athletic, whatever your gifts are, then now you look and say, okay, what tools do I have? Maybe some people are born into very wealthy families. That in itself is a tool.
Yes.
Anything that you have that can get you step by step to the next level towards achieving your goal. That really is a very useful thing to do. And again, many people do not take the time to look up and look around them. We're always too busy just in the weeds, living without purpose, because, we have to pay bills, we have to rest.
Yes.
The natural things that animals do. They have to reproduce, they have to rest, they have to pass waste, and they have to and they have to nourish themselves. If you just focus on that, that's not living. That's just what comes naturally. It's a carnal consequence.
There's something you've talked about, education and basically where you come from, acting as a tool.
Sure.
And most of the times we look at our environment as a hindrance. So does our environment affect how fast, whether I find my purpose and how that pans out?
Well, there's always good with bad. The same boiling water will harden an egg but soften a potato.
That's true.
So it's up to you to choose what you want to do with your environment. I can tell you numerous stories. My parents are one such example of people who grew up in immensely challenging conditions, and yet they were able to overcome and find their purpose and to become not just materially successful, but also impact their environment and have a meaningful career and life. And there are other examples of people who were born in fantastically wealthy, very comfortable materially environments,
Yes.
and they ended up, not really doing much, in despair, in sadness. So it's up to you what you choose to do with your environment. But again, if you do not look within and then now consolidate that and then look out, then it's going to be very difficult. And so your education, how much money you're born into, whether you're born to a single parent or both parents, or you're born an orphan or whatever it is, those you work with what you have.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we encourage people, especially like with Get Yours, work with what you have, because the constant that we have is time, and the other constant that we have is people.
Okay.
Until such a time where we don't need people and we don't have time, then that's it. And if you can leverage those two resources, then you'll be fine.
Okay.
I think.
Perfect. Most of the times people will think you get to your purpose at a later age. And then of course we'll see successful people who found their purpose early on. So does age matter?
Well, the time, those two things that I've talked about looking within yourself and then looking out, that happens at different stages for different people.
Okay.
Some people it happens early on in life, some people it happens later on in life. And again, like I said, the two resources that are constant is time and people. And what happens when we leave this earth, our time here stops.
Yes.
So that's it. I mean, it's what we choose to do with that time. So the earlier that people can find their purpose, the better. But experience has a lot to do with that, because at a very young age, if you're not one of the very, very lucky few who are able to quickly grasp what it is that they were put on this earth. You talk about maestros who are now celebrities, people who are, let's say, footballers or entertainers or whatever. If they start practicing their craft at a very early age, then they're already set. Their purpose has already been set.
Yeah.
So they will always move in that channel and grow exponentially. There are those who are bombarded with a bunch of options, and sometimes too much option is not great.
Okay.
And we have a society, at least here in Kenya, we have a society and an education system which gives you as many options as possible, and your job is to figure it out.
Okay.
As opposed to specializing at a very early age. So you look at some of the education systems in places like the US and possibly Europe, where you are encouraged to specialize and to start thinking from middle school. You already start channeling yourself, so that by the time you're entering university and even postgraduate,
Yes.
you're very, very set. Unfortunately for us, we start to realize what we want to do after postgraduate, and by that time you should be already on a point of consolidation, not discovery. Discovery needs to happen at least as early as possible. I was very lucky because again, maybe circumstances pushed me to start working and thinking about what I need to do from very young, because I was placed in a position of responsibility for my siblings very early. I was attending.
How early is early?
Around 16.
Wow.
I was attending like parent-teacher things at that time.
Wow.
Paying rent and things like that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Not with money that I earned, but
Yes.
because at that time both my parents were extremely busy, so we were. It was necessary for myself as the firstborn to really start to think about responsibility no matter what. I knew that I could go out partying with people and doing all the things that a teenager needs to do, but I know that the next day both my brother and sister have to be in school at a certain time.
Yes.
And they need to do certain things and they have to live in a certain way and so on. So that I'm very grateful. At the time, I thought it was just a real pain, but I'm very grateful that I had to deal with responsibility from a very early age. And you see it now, especially with, strong family businesses that encourage their children to be apprentices.
Yes.
Start from the bottom. If it's the company or the family business, you start working from the bottom. When you come back from school, go into the family business, whether it's a restaurant or whatever, that sense of responsibility fuels your purpose. It gives you work experience, it teaches you ethics, it teaches you a lot about real life that you can't get from school.
Okay.
So
yeah, I like that experience of our age. I'll ask you this question. Can I have more than one purpose? Is it possible?
I think so. And purpose, if you've done the exercise of looking within well enough and strong enough, then at some point you will accept that change is constant.
Okay.
And once you realize that, you'll realize that the change in your environment will always be there, but who you are may not change that much. And so being true to self means that even if I'm employed or in a entrepreneur situation, if I am healthy or not healthy, whatever my circumstances are, who I am is not going to necessarily change, but how I deal with that might change, and my goal might shift slightly, and I'll have to recalibrate. There are things that completely knock you off purpose, like if you get like a life-changing or a terminal illness or something like that, or someone very close to you passes on. You recalibrating might take a bit of time, and tragedy has a way of recalibrating your purpose.
That's true.
So it's possible to have more than one. I don't know if it's possible to have more than one purpose at a time. I just think that it's possible to have changing purpose because your milestones and your objectives will change as changes in your environment happen. As you age, as you move to a different country, as you change jobs, as you change careers, as you change relationships, it will affect your purpose, but you must never ever lose sight of you and how you choose to handle certain things.
Which leads me to the question. Many people hear of the word purpose and they think glamour and everything. But purpose comes with a lot of sacrifice, and you know this personally. So you have the stage. What happened?
Sure. So my circumstance, when I lived in South Africa because of family and parents moving there and working. But then when they left, I remained, and I was doing quite okay materially. Work was going well, and jobs were coming in, and I had a very good business going on, and I was trying to put in place an environment that would now keep me there for a long time. I lived in Johannesburg for 9 years, and I was engaged to someone, and I got a mortgage on a house, and everything was going quite well. And then overnight, because of some changes in the Home Affairs regulations, the World Cup was coming up, and a few other things, we had to come back. I had to come back to Kenya because of visa issues and so on. And I thought maybe this might take maybe just a couple of weeks or months at most, and it ended up taking almost a year.
Wow.
So I had to put on hold everything. And by the 6th month, something in me broke. I couldn't believe what was happening. I could see that everything that I had built was crumbling. And what I held sacred was falling apart. And so you can deal with it in a number of ways, and I didn't deal with it very well. I unfortunately spiraled a little bit out of control. You name it, from depression to drug abuse to whatever. And in that moment, you then realize that there's much more to life than chasing material satisfaction. And so, because family was very strong, they didn't allow me to disappear into the darkness. People rallied around me, and I was able to at least come back. Now the thing is, being in Kenya, I was a stranger in my own country, and so I had to start from scratch. It's different from when you plan, and this is the other reason why I'm very deliberate about doing things, because I did not plan. It was never in my plan to come back to Kenya. And so this came as a surprise, and not a very good surprise. It came as a shock. So recovering from that shock is something that I said to myself, I will never ever go through again. I will look at my environment very, very deliberately, so that I plan for every possible outcome. In the event that something should happen, I'm not going to, be as pushed to the wall as I was in that time. And then so, going through that, I then found I now had a lot of time to look at myself and to question, why is this happening? Who am I? What am I doing on this earth? Why did this, all the whys that you can possibly ask. Spent about half a year doing that.
Okay.
It was a very lonely time, but a very necessary time. And after that, pulled myself together, looked up and out, and started realizing I had met some people in South Africa who would now, help me get back on my journey. To this day, I'm very grateful for them.
Okay.
An incredible gentleman who runs one of the biggest medical laboratories in this country. He gave me an opportunity to find myself and to have meaningful work. And in that time, I now started discovering my sense of being and what I'm good at. What tools do I have? When you're down, you believe that you have nothing.
That's true.
And when you now look up, you realize that you actually can communicate quite well. You can, build a brand from people. You can manage people quite well. You can encourage others to be productive. And I realized that I had that skill. And so I put it into use in my job, and I worked tirelessly to, number one, reward the faith that this gentleman had put in me.
Okay.
And help him grow his business. And secondly, find a way to really define what I was put on this earth to do. And 2 years in that job, I learned very quickly that I'm good at leveraging the people around me.
Okay.
And working with human beings. And so I made that my life goal, is to understand people at a very deep level and see how we can work together for mutual benefit.
Okay.
And then I got headhunted, and I became a multinational, asked me to join them in a position of country director, continued with the work that I had learned. I never went to school to do an MBA or any of those things. I'm actually a lawyer by training. But you see, studying law and going through what I went through and working in the environment that I worked in, knowing that I had spent enough time looking at myself, I now knew what gifts I had, what my strengths were, and what my weaknesses were. So I didn't spend time losing sleep over what I'm not good at. If I'm not good at something, if someone else is good at it, let them be the one to do it. Take the credit by all means. But if they can help me in my job, then we both win.
Okay.
Then after that, I realized I now have enough in terms of network to now go on my own. And that was in 2014. At the birth of my first child, and everybody thought I was completely crazy.
Why?
But I assured them that I had snapped out of it.
Okay.
Yeah, because you're doing well. You're in this huge job. It's paying extremely well, and you've got everything going for you. But you realize that for as long as you are in this space that requires you to only to color within someone else's lines. Then if their lines are not exactly the same as the lines that you require in that moment, then unfortunately you're not being true to yourself. And I made a decision to quit and start my own business, which is House of Major, in 2014. And God is immensely faithful, and this is the other thing that you realize when you're finding yourself in moments of really serious personal tragedy and loss, because 2010 I lost pretty much everything. I nearly lost my mind with depression and everything. But in that time God tells you that this is a test, and so you have two choices. You can continue into the abyss, or you can rise up and take advantage of his glory. And he was extremely kind to me.
Yes.
and so we made a bit of a covenant and said, okay, if you've allowed me a second bite at the cherry, then I will do certain things for you as well.
Okay.
So I then decided that I will do as much as I can to speak to his glory. And I think some of the things that I'm trying to do with Get Yours is to make an impact and help as many people as possible. So for me, helping others is really central to my purpose. That's never going to change.
Okay. You've talked about something as that purpose is serving others. It's not self-serving.
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. You have, I mean, if you're not serving yourself, then you'll never feel satisfied. So if you're not getting any gratification from what you're doing, then you know, there's no point.
Okay.
You know, there has to be some level of benefit that you're deriving from it.
Okay.
But what is different from it being selfish is where that benefit can also help other people.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that's really where purpose aligns.
Okay.
Is where you're benefiting, and in turn you're able to now manifest that benefit to the benefit of others.
Okay.
You know.
Perfect. So something else that I said off air that you need to emphasize on is the need to have leverage, know how to do it. How do you get to a point where I may not have the money to do it, but I have a relationship with Mwenesi, so he can help me do that? How do we ask without feeling, you know, the shame? People are actually ashamed to ask for help.
So in the beginning, when we spoke about looking out and looking at the tools that are available to you, that's what it's about. And if you are not able to use what is around you, from the people to the circumstances to the education, then it's pointless. All you're doing is just going through the motions. Purposeful living means using what you have and making sure that it is growing productively every step of the way. If I meet you today and we exchange, you know, ideas and we talk to each other, I need to be able to find something that is useful to me as far as you're concerned. And you know what differentiates people who use and manipulate others as opposed to those who are always seeking benefit is that if there's something that is useful for as far as you are concerned, I will try and extract that. And if there's something that I can offer and reciprocate, one of the biggest tools of influence that we teach is reciprocity. At heart, human beings are reciprocal. You do for me, I do for you. That's just how it is. And so if you can't find, but it starts with you doing first.
Not asking first.
No.
Okay.
And therein lies, I think, the conundrum that people are faced with is we are always hands this way, you know, instead of looking for how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? How can I add value to your life? And then in turn, maybe you will see it, maybe you won't, but I will make sure that you see it. And this happens a lot, especially in the workplace. We want pay rises, we want this, we want. But what are you doing, and how are you showing that what you're doing is adding value? And vis-a-vis, can you now equate it to what you're able to request for and combine those two so that you paint a picture that says you actually deserve this thing that the person will give you. So that has nothing to do with anything. It just has to do with simply looking up, looking around and saying, okay, how can I use what I have? But first, it starts with me. Provide value and then extract value.
Okay.
Even the seeds and plants work that way. I'm not just going to put a seed and hope that it grows. A few things have to go into it: water, soil, sunlight, and so on. So you have to nurture the relationships and the opportunities that are presented to you.
Okay. I like that, giving value before you ask for anything. You know, my generation is accused of asking for pay rises and not necessarily giving value. But a discussion for another day. This came from one of us at the office who asked, what if you find yourself in a situation where someone says they have finally found their purpose and it interferes with their provision in the family? So case in point, you're a CEO, you're an MD, you already have a family. Then one day you wake up to wifey and say, you know what? I think I should teach the word.
Sure.
What happens?
Now the relationships are another whole other topic, but if I can touch on that specific example, I believe that, and speaking from a public relations crisis management perspective, if something is a surprise, then it's your fault.
Okay.
And if you have not done enough to communicate regularly in your relationship, then you take it. And it's the same thing with me. When I became shocked that, oh my goodness, I'm back in Kenya, I'm back in this environment, that's on me. You know, shame, fool me once, shame on you.
Fool me twice.
Absolutely. And so in that situation, whoever the spouse is or the person who is now being put in that situation. Of course, now they don't have the benefit of communicating up to that point, because if they had been communicating with this person, understanding their needs, their fears. You're not just coming home and saying, what are we having to eat? It's coming home and actually having a conversation with your spouse to find out their hopes, their dreams, their fears. It's not an event. It's something that should happen every day if possible.
Okay.
Because we don't have the benefit of that. Now we're faced with this situation. If you are in it for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, and all of that lovely stuff, then your job is to support and provide the support. But it has to be support with conditions, because communication is very, very important. You can't wake up and surprise me with something that is completely life-changing.
Okay.
Health is a different situation. People wake up and they find out that they have something terminal. But this is a choice, and your choice has to be something that is a discussion. It cannot be just a, now I'm selling the family home and we are going to be monks. That's
something. Pursue purpose.
Yeah, that's something that affects me. It affects me directly, and if it affects me directly, then you have a responsibility to walk with me in this journey. It cannot be, you cannot be selfish in a relationship. It cannot just be on you. Whatever decisions you make now affect a person who is either dependent on you, whether it's your wife or your children or your husband or your children or whoever the breadwinner is, needs to understand that their position of provider, of leader, affects their constituents.
Okay.
So you have a responsibility not just for yourself. And I know from a perspective of faith that people in leadership positions will be questioned as to how they treated their constituents. So your job as the person who is now finding their purpose needs to be that you are aware that this decision will affect them. So you need to work together to find ways of mitigating the effects of that.
Okay.
Or finding a way to substitute. If this is what we were earning and now this is where we're going, then these are the things that I've put in place as a soft landing. Even as you quit your job in employment, you need to have at least 3 to 6 months buffer.
Exactly.
Or ready business that is going to be able to support you in times of uncertainty. You don't just wake up and make life-changing things without, insulating and making sure that the fallout is not taken care of. And you on the receiving end of that, yours is to make sure that from that point on, you're not caught off guard, and now it's a shared responsibility. Of course, it's easier said than done because they're emotions. People are emotional creatures, and how that communication happens is also important. How people will communicate to each other from that point on. Is it going to be a collective, or is it going to be I'm doing this and you just take it, and I'm not going to take it because I don't care. How can you do this to me? And that's how things escalate very quickly. So stepping back and just being a little bit pragmatic about the situation. But again, it's easier said than done. Relationships are very interesting things.
Okay, I think you're trying to say they're complicated. You talked about how if you're just finding your purpose and you have people around you, you need to be sensitive to them as well.
100%.
So purpose is not an excuse to be careless.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
Absolutely. I've learned that the hard way in a couple of situations, but the reality is that, again, like I say, the two resources that everybody has is time and people.
Okay.
As soon as you disregard one of those resources, you waste one of those resources, then you're in trouble. And the people around you especially, and we have spheres of influence. The most immediate sphere is you, your parents or whoever raised you, and then whoever depends on you and whoever is connected to you from a choice perspective, whether it's a spouse or girlfriend, whatever. And then around you is your neighborhood, where you currently live, where you currently work, where you go to church, where you worship, and all of the things that are connected to your daily requirements, where you go shopping, where you fuel your car, where you take your transport, all of those. And then around that is your country, the laws, all of those things. So within your spheres of influence, you have a responsibility.
Okay.
Because you cannot fulfill your purpose without those spheres.
Okay.
You cannot. So do not take any of them for granted, and do not think that you can just wake up and find your purpose, ignoring those that are around you and disregarding their feelings, their ideas. Find a way of working and leveraging for mutual benefit, that your purpose and their collective circumstances align.
Okay, perfect. So what happens if I thought I found my purpose? Let's say I thought my purpose was to teach kids, and 3 years in, I don't feel like it anymore. Is it possible to just take a detour, and does it happen where you find a wrong purpose?
Yes, and when like in that example that you've used, I woke up one day and maybe my purpose was to teach kids. What were you teaching the kids for?
Okay.
What was the point? You know, and the point is always, it's never going to change.
Okay.
If you're teaching kids as a means to an end or as the end itself, then that has to be very clear from the beginning. If you're doing it because someone else is doing it and they look like they were inspired, so you think, okay, if they look inspired, then I'm also going to derive inspiration because they're doing it.
Yeah.
It's the same as an orange seed growing up, trying to be planted in a field of pineapples, and looking around and thinking, you know what, all these pineapples look so nice, and why are they growing like this? I should also grow like this.
Okay.
Get yours. Focus on your thing so that you know, I'm going to teach kids because of X.
Okay.
And that X needs to be the driving force. If you're going to get it from teaching kids or cooking or whatever, focus on the X. The action is simply a tool or a requirement, energy to get you to that X.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the purpose never changes.
The purpose never changes.
Okay.
What you do to get there. So, for example, I know for sure my purpose, God willing, in a couple of years, what I would like to accomplish. So everything that I'm doing, the training, the communication, the mentorship, the whatever, these are all pieces to the puzzle that are leading towards that.
Okay.
And there's some that are contingency, plan A to M, for example. But if plan A works, great. Then I can pivot to plan B. But I'm not losing sight of where I'm going.
Okay.
I just have different ways of getting there. And it's up to how I use the time and the people around me to get to that point.
Okay.
So this path requires this amount of time, this amount of energy, this amount of people interaction. This path needs more people, less time. This path needs more time, more people, and so on and so forth. So it's how you use what's around you.
Okay.
But you can never lose sight of where you're going.
Okay, perfect. I think we're almost out of time, but I'll ask you this, and I asked you this just before you went on air.
Yes.
Your faith and your purpose.
Yes.
We are of different faiths,
Yes.
but we had a chat and we thought it's the same thing.
Sure.
We both want to achieve a certain purpose. How does faith play a role in how you found your purpose?
Wow. Faith in God is, for me, it's central to everything that I believe, because we were not, if you look at the genesis of the human being, where literally the physical founding blocks,
yes,
from a man and from a woman to this point, that miracle of growth, it is not ordained by just whatever.
Yes.
There is a definite, deliberate, creative process and energy that is driving that.
Okay.
And the energy that is driving that is, as far as I'm concerned, the same energy that is responsible for the other intangibles that you're not in control over. I'm sitting here in the studio with you today.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things and people that I care about outside of the studio. I'm not in control of them right now.
Yes, now you're here.
I'm here.
Yeah.
What I can physically control is within my space.
Okay.
Outside of here, I don't know what is happening. And knowing that I am completely helpless and I have no control over so many things, means that I have to rely on whoever and whatever force and being and energy that allowed me to grow from the seed of a man and the seed of a woman to this point.
Yeah.
To create nails and teeth and eyes and internal organs and whatever it is in perfect design, and the air that we breathe and all the amazing things that are around us. There's definitely a force that is in charge of all of that. And if I'm not in tune with that force, then I don't think I'm really doing myself any favors. So constantly being in tune with that force, even if I can't interact with it with my five senses, is very important to me. And that the only explanation that I can give is what I was raised with, and that is faith in God.
Okay. We're out of time.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I think I'll leave you with this. What I've learned from him is, one, you need to live your truth. Don't try and compare yourself to other people. And secondly, time and people, that is all you have. You know, some of you just strain relationships because you're angry and then you can't go back and ask for help. But I hope you've learned something in terms of finding your purpose. Tomorrow, we talk about something else. That's a bit of a, how about you tune in and then you'll find out. My name is Medrin Nyambura. It's been such a fantastic time to have you. Have a good night, but stay tuned for Jackton Musi with Prayer Circle.